I'm Catherine McLean, founder and CEO of Dylan Green, and today I have with me Ike Emehelu from Akin Gump. Welcome, Ike.
Nice to be here. Thanks, Catherine.
I wanted to start by first congratulating you. I know that you've just taken a new role on as partner at Akin Gump. Tell me a bit about yourself and your new role.
Oh, sure. No, so I just joined Akin Gump about 2 months ago. And I used to be a partner at Norton Rose Fulbright. I was at Norton Rose Fulbright for 14 years, and before that, I was at Hunter Williamson and Sullivan and Cromwell. So I'm excited. This is an opportunity to join Akin Gump. Akin Gump is just a terrific firm, and my role is to hopefully help connect different pieces of Akin Gump that are focused on the energy transition, right? So Akin Gump has probably one of the leading public law and policy group, and so many things, so many issues on the renewable energy side are driven by policy. As Akin Gump, was started in Dallas and has a huge footprint in Texas, and represent a lot of traditional energy companies. And so I'm really excited to be here and sort of bring everything together, right? The old traditional energy companies, decarbonization, and the energy transition. So I'm excited to be here.
Great. And did you always know that you wanted to be a lawyer, focused on the energy transition? Like, how did you make your way into that space?
Do you want me to go back to kindergarten or?
Tell me about the day you were born.
Exactly, right? It's like, everybody congratulated themselves because finally Ike is here. But no, I've always sort of wanted to be a lawyer. I think I told my parents when I was 7 years old, I wanted to be a lawyer, but the energy transition was somewhat relatively new. I grew up in Nigeria. And, so in law school, and I thought I would do something that was sort of relevant to Africa.
Yeah.
And infrastructure, sort of happened onto infrastructure as like the output for it.
Yeah.
And so my initial interest in this world was to be a projects lawyer, learn exactly how do you structure infrastructure projects, how do you bring them to market, how do you make it work out. That evolved into realizing that, quite frankly, the US has become kind of like an emerging market when it comes to renewable energy, right?
When it comes to renewable energy?
When it comes to renewable energy.
Yeah,
when it comes to renewable energy. I mean, there's still some issues that we're borrowing from others. Offshore wind is relatively new here, so we're borrowing some of those concepts from Europe. So once I sort of saw the opportunity to do this here, I just immediately, latched on to this emerging sort of wall. So I've been focused on almost exclusively on project finance since 2008.
And I know that you've worked on projects, as you said, through the Americas, Africa and Latin America. What is some of the work that you're most proud of and why? So, for example, I'm aware that you have done some work related to Energy Access Relief Fund, Capture Energy, Mulligan Solar, and others. But interesting to hear your thoughts around what you're most proud of and why.
Yeah, sure. So the Energy Access Relief Fund that you mentioned is a good example of sort of the power of the market, right? So that was basically a fund that was set up to help companies that were facing liquidity crisis due to COVID. Okay. And so these are companies that had great business models, were doing well prior to the pandemic. Then the pandemic occurred and they were facing liquidity crisis. And the fund was designed to provide subsidized loans to them. And I represented investors into the fund. So that was fantastic. I think I'm especially proud of, kind of the diversity of my practice. So I worked on 2 of the 3 largest onshore wind farms in the US. For one, I represented the lenders and the other represented the sponsors. Okay. I worked on the first standalone energy battery project to be financed on a non-recourse basis. And, these were, and each of these deals came up with brand new issues. That's kind of why I joke that we're a bit of an emerging market in the US. Right. So I was just basically being proud of the fact that I've been able to work on transactions that hadn't been done before, or that came up with new issues, and in their own way help propels us to a net zero world.
Right. What are you most looking forward to at your time at Akin, and why?
Yeah, I know it's really my colleagues. I've spent 2 months here now, and I've been to multiple offices, meeting, and it's just an exceptional group of people. I sort of hinted at it earlier. Akin Gump is really uniquely placed to be to maintain its role in this energy transition. So the PLP group, the Public Law and Policy Group out of DC, they are among the best in terms of what they do. For instance, we represent the solar industry on issues surrounding tariff. And so to get the benefit of their experience and the benefit of their insight into their policy, and then take that and work with my colleagues out of our Houston office, our Dallas office, that represents, traditional energy companies, many of whom are interested in, carbon capture and sequestration now. And I think the firm, we've probably worked on more CCUS deals than pretty much any other firm. And then come up, obviously, and then add all to that, all the renewable energy work that we do. So, so in some places you hear people arguing about, should we do gas or should we do solar? Should we do, what should we do as we get to the energy transition? And I think, my experiences at Akin Gump and with the clients that we serve is that all the clients, it seems like there's some sort of an agreement. Everybody's already investing in the space. And so, to be at a firm where we sort of move away from those sort of foundational questions and into like, let's go on, let's just get it done. So that has been very exciting for me.
What are some of the key trends that you think will make or break kind of renewable energy M&A in the coming years?
One is, the policy. I think it's hard to predict what's going to come out of DC. And so, if there's no sort of, if there's less clarity on government policy going forward, I think it affects pricing and affects people's appetite to take risks. And we've seen that, and it's not just on the tax side, but also on sort of the pure regulatory side. So we see that with PJM, for instance, on the capacity markets. So if there's lack of clarity as to, what the regulators would do, that sort of affects people's appetite to do deals. And then I'm still not convinced that as a market, that we've completely appropriately priced like climate change. So I think as more unexpected, climate issues come up, right? And if there is no corresponding, say, insurance policy or structuring for that, I think it's going to have an impact in the industry going forward. But these are more sort of long-term issues. The more near-term, it's the things you turn on the TV and you hear. It's like, will there be inflation or not inflation? Will interest rates go up or down? But I think the market has a way of dealing with those sort of more near-term issues. But the fundamental issues of, clarity on the government policy side, what are we doing about, sudden changes in weather patterns and how they affect particular projects. And again, the last thing I'll mention is also it's kind of related to government policy, but solving the transmission issues. Because increasingly, without a good way to transport, the electrons from where we generate them to load centers, it's always going to have an issue, I think.
Are there any sort of like structural issues that you are seeing that could possibly affect the renewable energy industry? One issue that I'm not sure enough people are focusing on is, I think there's greater need to, democratize the sector and bring in, underserved communities to participate, both as end users and as investors in this sector. I think a lot of the ways, a lot of the focus so far, the way the market has evolved is through, say the tax equity model, where the government gives you actual tax credits. So you have to be a profitable entity
in order to benefit from the credits. Now that makes sense, and there are very good policy reasons for that. But as more and more people want to participate in the renewable energy, want to make sure that not only are they getting, clean energy for their homes, but that they can also invest in the clean energy sector. I think it becomes more important to find ways to bring underserved communities. I was actually very happy to hear, I think in the last week, the government was announcing some initiatives to allow people to invest into community solar, for instance. So for right now, if you want solar on your roof, you have to have a home with a big roof that can take on the solar, right?
Right.
So if you live in apartments or it's harder for you to participate in it. So the community solar approach kind of came up to help solve that, right? Where you can just say, okay, there'll be a specific solar plant elsewhere, and then you can sign on to get the benefit of that solar plant. But I think there are some government initiatives to make that a bit more easier to participate in.
Right.
And I think we need to see more things like that. We need to see with solar, we need to see with wind, and especially offshore wind as well. So the offshore wind industry is going to create, new businesses, make new manufacturing centers. And I think it becomes important to make sure that people in the communities that are close to this investment are able to participate. And the reason I say that is, I think it seems to go in cycles, and it is conceivable that at some point, people will simply just demand it, right? And so I think our industry just needs to do a better job of bringing people from underserved communities into the industry.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree from like a consumption point of view, but also like from a jobs point of view.
Correct.
Like this could be such a game changer for a lot of these communities from a jobs. I mean, these are really good jobs.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. They're, great jobs. They pay well, and they're transferable to so many other things, and I think, as an industry, we all need to participate. And there are people who are already working on this, but I think we all need to do more.
Yeah. So what advice would you give those looking to follow in your footsteps? So for example, did you have impactful mentors along the way or other experiences that helped you enter into and succeed within the clean energy industry?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've been very, very lucky to, work with people I admire. At my old firm, I worked with, Kate Martin, who's the founder of the industry, as I joke, but, he's definitely somebody that I've always admired. And I think in my experience, it's important to learn not just from people senior to you, but from people more junior. I think, so I used to be somebody who would print every single piece of paper. That's just how I would read. I would just print the document and read it, until somebody who was, a first year at that time working for me convinced me that you don't need to do that. Like you could just read the PDF, and I started learning that, and I started doing that. And I would just, I think my point is just, you can learn from anybody, whether senior or junior, so long as you're a bit humble to pay attention to what people are actually saying. And that's really what I'll recommend to people.
It's such a good point, because I think everybody always thinks of mentorship as like somebody like more senior than you or older than you, like wiser than you. But there's a lot of wisdom people younger than you can bestow upon you as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's absolutely true.
They look at things with a different lens, I guess.
Yeah.
But well, thank you so much for speaking to me today, and I wish you the best of luck at Akin.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Catherine. Appreciate it.